Alright, so, I've recently played a game called Social Services for the Doomed. I would recommend it, although it isn't very satisfying. I think some choice of games nail the choices really well, and despite missing some of the story in some playthroughs, it still feels good to make the choices and see the results. Here maybe not so much. In fact, I felt punished for not paying all my attention to the ley line problem. So any choices made were mostly superficial, unless I was okay with a bad ending. So, what is it about? The life of a senior mediator of the Department of Supernatural Social Services is a tough one. Werewolves on the prowl, territorial as ever, vampires, pundit and arrogant, and trolls throwing concrete slabs everywhere. The job needs a firm hand, a sharp tongue, and a solid understanding on the fundamental differences between species shaping the modern supernatural society, which is impossible without endless patience constantly tried by the slithering co-workers. It's a challenging life of a bureaucrat, but someone has to do it. What did I like? First of all, the premise. I absolutely adore when something fantastical gets treated as a completely mundane thing and the entire world is crazy, yet somehow everyone just carries on as the utter nonsense happens around them. It's especially important here because it's such a mundane idea of a job like that in a world like this. It makes me think of something Terry Pratchett would write. Also, the idea is a little similar to Choice of the Deathless, which I've also enjoyed. Only there it is lawyers and quite a bit more supernatural mumbo-jumbo with less paperwork. Also, I like the workplace. I think all the scenes in there were great. At one point everyone is fighting and there is a choice to quietly peace out, which I found hilarious. At one point there is a demonic bird and a directionally challenged angel. And also there is a little scuffle with the archivist who mauls people who bring food to the archives. But what's the true highlight is Vanja. I don't think I've seen such a great co-worker character. It's such a bitchy, nitpicking character who I dislike as a person but begrudgingly respect regardless. A person who is gonna berate the player and then cover for them because it's the right thing to do. I very much enjoyed the few moments we've shared together. Also there were supernatural quirks peppered in, such as blood for vampires, everyone knows that, so a golf course, for example, could have blood on tap due to the patronage of vampires being pretty prevalent. And there are some small comments that there is no catering to the stone trolls, who wouldn't consume anything on the menu except tap water, while usually being served motor oil of all things. Also the fact that it's difficult to golf with a stone troll is mentioned, and that humans should try walking in a mile in trolls' shoes. These small kinda bitchy remarks are adding to the world building significantly. It actually feels like a world with all the supernatural people having very mundane problems. But what did I dislike? The story felt very hit and miss. So the main thing is the ley line. It's shifted. It's basically a force of nature. A thing which feeds magic and makes supernatural beings more antsy. So vampires scheme more and want to bite everything, for example. Werewolves go a bit more bananas. The problem is that there is more to the story. There are usually choices of either looking more into the ley line or putting out fires which just sprout everywhere. And I don't really see much of a benefit in doing the latter. At the end of the day, that won't fix the cause. And I did 2 playthroughs with mostly focusing on helping people and keeping them from killing each other, ending up with dead co-workers, happy villains, and everything falling apart. Meanwhile, the second time over I ignored everyone and just kept pressing whatever had towards ley line and ended up with everyone happier, safer, and with less problems all around. Also feels like all the little tidbits go absolutely nowhere. For example, at one point there was a small talk with some snake parents. Their children grow and mature faster than humans, although they are treated the same. So they need to wait until the children hatch before being put on a kindergarten waiting list. Discrimination, in other words. I was concerned about this and personally said that I'll deal with it. Never appears again and it's not even mentioned in passing with a snake co-worker. You'd think there would be some solidarity between the two. At least not with the choices I picked the first time. Nothing. The choices, mind you, which had nothing to do with the issue. I was honestly curious what comes of it, even if a plotline couldn't be influenced much. I just thought it was a really cool, simple and realistic problem, and yet, nothing. This makes the choices feel very unsatisfying because in the end, they just do not matter. It's a matter of slightly different wording for the player to see, but effectively it's all the same. Which leads into another problem, non-choices. That's the one thing which I feel is basically one of the worst crimes to be committed when writing these games. What happens is game offers player choices, but instead of changing any stats or having different wording in whatever you pick or having literally any effect at all, instead nothing happens. There are 4 choices to make and they don't offer anything different. And worse yet, they aren't worded differently either. And instead it's like another paragraph. Sentences separated into set choices. I hate that so very much. It's like an insult to a player's intelligence. Pretending to give a choice and instead going, hey, gonna be doing this anyway. Also, the game is short and was definitely intended for multiple playthroughs, as well as a ton of mixed text with different choices picked. Yet, the effect on the world from said choices seems to be minimal, and instead it's just about what players get to see, from which perspective and how much. Which isn't bad, especially if a world is interesting, but it's definitely not a strong point by any means. So, I still enjoyed it, but I don't know if it will stick in my memory as a classic or a very memorable title. There are definitely stronger entries in the choice of games than Deathless sticks, and Deathless sticks out in my mind as a much more impactful title when it comes to the mundane part of a supernatural society. I'd still rate it above a lot of others, though, for example Death Collector, another somewhat similar premise. So, Social Services of the Doomed is not great, but it's not bad either, somewhere close to average.